But I think we could just kind of roll into it, right? We get to a little Seent It situation. Are you guys ready?
Yeah, I am.
Luis, are you good with the recording? We just keep recording and then we'll just kind of clip it out.
Yeah.
All right, just do a little 10 minutes. Little
Clip,
10.
clip,
not
snip,
10.
snip.
All right, so this is a mini.
Snip.
Dalan, please. This is an episode of Seent It, a mini Seent It, if you will. I'm Carlos Macias. We got Dalan Kirkwood up in the mountains, Deo Blas, and Luis Mendez. You guys, thanks for sticking around. If you guys were checked out the last episode of Salient Points, you got this bonus. You already heard it, but we clipped it out just in case for all the people that only care about the zombie fight situations. Can I kick it off real quick though? And can I go straight into spoiler mode immediately? On the wackiest situation that happened in that episode.
You shall.
The tendril kiss, man. What the fuck was that, man? It was gross, man, but it was amazing at the same time. It was incredible because it's like, this is wild. Are they gonna do it? It's like, oh yeah, they're gonna go full into it, and it's gonna blow up.
The remake of Resident Evil 4 is at that level.
Yes,
like where they make it a little wacky that way.
That gross. I want it to be dark. That was dark.
Yeah, it was disturbing, dude. And it's funny because it's not like a jump scare. It's not like, oh, it's building up dread, or it's like, what are they gonna do? Oh, okay, the zombie's just gonna come up to this woman. I've been watching this show with my daughter, by the way, and she was like, ugh. She was like, that was priceless. It was priceless. That she was watching it at 100. She's like, is it necessary to put it at 100? Yes, it's necessary to blow up this TV. These speakers are gonna be blown out by the end of this series, but it will have been worth it. It will be, but it's an amazing show. Go ahead, Dale. What are you thinking here? I see you nodding.
I agree with everything you just said. I think it's crazy.
This is the last plug. Is the end.
I think it's crazy that in a show where it had the tendrils and the clickers, that tendril kiss was scarier than the clickers. Which is that clicker scene was amazing. When they got into the Boston what do you call it, the museum part,
the museum.
Oh my God. Actual clickers moving around, but that thing was creepy when you see them when they're on the rooftop and you see them slithering around, because you're like, those graphics, no, they're creepy. They're slithering around, right? Bumping all over each other.
That was the risk that they took when they had to explain that it's not spores doing the whole thing anymore. It's tendrils and everything's connected around them. And so, for Miles,
which was a new thing.
Totally new.
That's
not in the game. No, it's not.
Oh, okay,
that was a show decision where they're like, no, spores don't get contaminated by spores anymore. It's by tendrils, and so that's the main medium that infects everything, and it stays. And I'm glad they explained and they went into more in depth in it in the beginning of the show and throughout the show, when Joel, before they got into the museum, Joel's examining one of the tendril, a big thicker tendril thing on the floor, and he's like, oh, it's dry. That means we could go in. I was like, oh, they never had that kind of they
didn't really have that in the game. No. I was thinking I just don't pay attention in the game sometimes. No, they're creating new little story threads, little wrinkles to it, right? And if you guys stick around to the end of the episodes, HBO does those little interviews with it, and they have Neil Druckmann.
Yeah, I love that actually.
Director. I actually stick around for those, and I force my daughter sit down. We're gonna listen to these characters talk about this show we just watched. So I'm over here forcing her to sit down for the little 5-minute interview. But they talk about how they did have to switch it around. Some of the stuff makes more sense. The tendril stuff makes more sense than the spores, where they could just be dissipated, or I don't know what the word is, my bad, whatever the word is. But they kind of explain to well, it doesn't necessarily make sense that the spores are happening, right? The tendrils kind of make more sense for this. Luis, since
they just didn't want to buy the masks.
Before we step on any more of Luis's lines, Luis, what are you thinking, man? What are you thinking so far about what we're talking about?
So the thing that I was mentioning at the top of the Salient Points episode that we just recorded before this, where I was saying the thing that they removed that they might bring back later, that was the spores that they were talking about. So they removed it from the show, and like you guys had said, and they said, well, we're not necessarily removing it from the world, but we just didn't find a place to put it into season 1. If you guys want to potentially see it, then keep watching, and then we'll probably get renewed for season 2 and maybe find a way to sneak it in there.
Yeah, which at this point, one of the things we didn't mention, but at this point, they've actually increased their viewership. Usually you have a season premiere, it drops off a little bit. It's still good, but it drops off. People are the word of mouth is strong on this one, but they're no, we actually increased viewership for episode 2.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
go ahead.
And maybe it'll come back for that. I do watch the same thing you guys are talking about, the after sort of credits thing, but also the next morning, like I did this morning, I listened to the companion podcast as well.
Oh, I mess with that. Yeah,
with Neil Druckmann.
Right.
Troy Baker is kind of the guy in the middle mediating, and then with the other director that we were talking about.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you guys brought up that kiss was creepy, because they were actually intending for that to be like this beautiful sort of moment, which I don't know if it necessarily came across the screen completely like that. It was different. It threw me completely.
It was sort of
a beautifully cringe moment. They must not know what it looks like to have a shitload of worms shoved in your mouth.
Well, look, but the thing is, you can see it, Luis. You can see what you're talking about. You can kind of see because it's a slowish scene. It's not like a very fast, like they took a beat, and I think even what the actress was talking about that on the after the HBO recording.
Anna Torv?
Yeah, I think she was even saying like, oh, it was supposed to be different, the scene. So maybe she was in reference to that, right? Like it's like came off creepier than beautiful or whatever it was that they were trying to do.
Which was fine.
Yeah,
but it is one of those things where, like, they opened up that route for doing something different, because the getting chased by Fedra at that point didn't really make much sense anymore. So they're like, well, we don't necessarily have to have Tess go down in a metaphoric blaze of glory by shooting these guys down to get them some time to get out. They could actually just have her blow up the building. But I guess before that, sneak in some kind of beautiful / creepy / off-putting tendrily warm kiss.
Yeah, it's kind of funny
for that.
I don't know.
No real good word for it.
I don't know if you guys saw, but I thought it was kind of weird. I don't know if it was weird, but maybe it's just correct, right? But you have Joel, and like he doesn't say bye to her or anything. He just grabs the girl, and she's like, "I'm not going with you." And this guy just takes off. Like, you would think he'd be like, "Bye, honey," or "Bye, my love," or something. Something like a little tender. He was like, "I'm out of here. Blow up with the rest of them." But,
no, Carlos, you can't have that, especially when just before she was talking about, "I never asked you to actually have actual feelings in this relationship. I didn't ask."
And also, she's infected, right? She's infected.
She was just trying to get him to get out of there.
Like, she wanted him to be able to have a clean break. So instead of doing it as lovers would, she had him leave as a soldier would, which is why she made her little comment before he walked out.
Very reasonable. What you know what? One of the things I've been kind of enjoying, actually, which is like, those intros are nice, man. They sort of remind me of like Breaking Bad a little bit. I don't know if you guys remember Breaking Bad. It'd be like someone like tapping on the table. Like, okay, where is this going? Breaking Bad, you never saw Breaking Bad? The intros with you, if you haven't seen Breaking Bad, Dalan.
Thing?
God, you know what, Dalan?
Oh my gosh.
Come on, man. What's happening here? Anyways, I'm trying to make a reference here, and you're out of control. Breaking Bad would do like those. Breaking Bad would do those intros where they're kind of non sequiturs. It seems like, right? Like, it's like, what the hell is this? But you're captivated, and I think they've done that in each episode here for The Last of Us. We're like, what the hell? Where's this going? Like, where is? I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I've been enjoying the intros in particular, and I'm going forward. I don't know how long they keep that up, because even Breaking Bad didn't necessarily always do those intros, like where it kind of hooks you in. But I hope it does, because I'm loving them so much. And they're like outside of the games too, right? It seems like
so it just made you want a chicken sandwich? Is that what it was?
Yeah. Oh, do you remember the Breaking Bad scene where they're testing ketchups and barbecue sauces? That was a beautiful scene. How do you guys feel about the intros? We'll go to Dale. How you feeling intro wise? Or is there, it's just whatever. It's just the intro.
I love it, because it frames the world of The Last of Us in a way that's like really helpful for people who've never played the game before, but it also like reinforces certain parts of the video game that weren't really explained to us. Through
why are we safe here? I don't understand.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's what they go into, and like you said, with the non sequitur parts, it's like yeah, who is this person that the police took right now? What does she have to do with the story? Like, why is it from 10 years ago or something? Right, so they're giving a background to all the events that happened before, like the Joel and Ellie era that's going on. So it's really good. It's really well shot, and I forgot how much in the episode 2, it's shot in Indonesia, and I forgot how much like Indonesian language sounds a lot like Filipino. So then, like, when I was listening to it, I was like, oh my God, it sounds like my mom. It's like talking to me, like, right now. It's so weird.
Listen to my mom talking right now. Yeah. But it's been,
hey man,
it's
your
been
mom
nice.
just told them to bomb the city.
Yeah, basically. It was like, Jesus. Oh, that like hit home like really hard. I was like, oh man, it's serious.
Luis, how you feeling, man? Intros, or I don't know if you want to kind of move on from that, or how you feeling?
Yeah, so Craig Mazin actually did mention that Vince Gilligan and Breaking Bad were kind of a huge inspiration behind those intros, so you're on the money on that. And I guess there's some science behind it, that doing something that is what you're saying, non sequitur, at the beginning of a show, the audience is much more accepting that something that has nothing to do with what just happened previously in the last episode, and going in there and kind of saying, okay, what's this about for the next 5-ish minutes or whatever. Yeah. So I guess that's why they kind of like sneaking those in, and it is cool to basically see, as someone that's played the games, being able to see adding more lore kind of to the world of like what was happening on the other side of the world. Like we and they kind of did make it a point in the game to just make it sort of this like Americana story of it's just in the US. We don't know anything about Japan, Indonesia, whatever. So it's cool to kind of see.
Oh, they expand on it, right? And it ends so beautifully too, right? He's like, what's the solution? Give us a vaccine. She's like, bomb, motherfucker. You need to bomb everything. Bomb everything.
Bomb the city.
Bomb everything.
Bomb everybody and everyone in it.
I need to go to my family and say goodbye right now. All right, bomb this place. Go ahead.
But it was a nice sort of setup and foreshadowing for what Ellie asked later in the show about, is this where they dropped the bombs? So like it kind of adds more to that sort of, they actually did this like all over the world, and it kind of worked here, but not everywhere.
Did you guys like, so there's a couple scenes that they pull like right from the game. Well, one of them is sort of like in the background, like it's if you played the game you get more from it, but there's the scene in the hotel where Ellie is kind of like a 1-to-1, and she makes the little scenes like, I will take your best suite or whatever. But I like the more subtle one where they're walking, it's Joel and the girl and Ellie, and they're walking along. They're walking along, and they're like, "Oh, did you have a boyfriend or something?" And she's like, "No." And you kind of see that little pause because that's in reference to is her name Riley, I believe, in the Left Behind. Yeah. So it's in reference to if you played Left Behind, right? It's kind of like, oh, okay. You see those hints of like this previous sort of life, whereas in Last of Us, like the game, you kind of only get that after you've played Left Behind, right? I don't think there's necessarily any like hints like that, but I like that the show is like throwing little like, oh, she's recalling this, but you would only know if you played this. Have you noticed anything else like that? Then little subtle hints, or how you feeling about like the references or like the 1-to-ones to the game?
Did you say Dale or Dalan?
Oh, Dalan. My bad, Dalan. Go ahead. You haven't talked. Hey, Dalan, it's 1, 2, 3. Not 1, 2 back to 1. We're trying to keep it going around. It's the process.
I actually like the fact that they are slowly veering away from the exactness of the game in regards to the TV show, because honestly, I didn't think a 1-to-1 would work in regards to Last of Us, and I'm super glad that they actually had these little openings to actually have larger explanations, or at least little pieces of background, because that actually creates a different type of gravity to the situation that's coming up. And if they keep doing it, they're just going to keep building upon how bad clickers are. And I mean, there was even the fact that what was it? Ellie mentioned the fact that there were ones that explode and stuff like that.
Yes, that's a cool, nice little reference. Yeah.
So there's all kinds of references that drop, and she's coming to this realization that they are worse than what she has even heard, and they've only ran into 2 of these things. Yeah. I mean, when you're playing the game, you're in a room with like 6 or 7, and if it gets any larger than that, you're probably dead.
Yeah, and and it's funny seeing like, say the characters or kind of kneeling or crouching, right? But in the game, it's like it's a mechanic. You're playing the game.
Very common mechanic.
Yeah, it's very common. You see it in games all the time, but just seeing it on film, them crouching, I was like, that must hurt, man. Those man's knees are in pain right now. Ellie's young; she can deal with it. But this man's knees
it didn't last that long. When that glass showed up, that was it. That's the reality of being in an actual room. When you break shit, there's rubble, and everything makes noise. Yeah. So
it's nice, man. All the like subtle little acting, right? Like he's like, shh, they can hear you, but they can't see, right? Like all that little stuff is. It's awesome. Look, the game, and I do like you were saying, Dylan, they're kind of deviating a little bit. It's not completely 100% 1-to-1. But I like that. To me, the games still have their place. You know, like the games, like you should still go play the games, but also watch this show, right?
I say it all the time. Playing the game is nothing like watching the game. It's always different. And the same thing could go for a TV show. You could say playing the game is way different from watching the show. Yeah. Even though, yes, you know where all the references come from, it should give you a completely different feel in both cases. You shouldn't look at the TV show and say, well, that's exactly what they did in the game. That's exactly what they did in the game. It's looking exactly like I don't want to see that.
But you can't help it, right? You can't help but like I played this scene and IGN does it like all the time, right? It's like, these are the one-to-one scenes. This is how they pulled them. And I watch them. I'm like, okay, let me see. How close was it? But when you're watching it, you're watching the show. You're watching these actors portraying these beautiful characters. And I they're doing it, man. They're actually doing it. They're making a good show. But I think it goes to show you that when Neil Druckmann, who is the director of the games, when you have a guy working closely with the TV show or the adaptation, you're gonna get something nice. You're gonna get something great. We'll do one last thing here for this episode. We'll go to Deo first. Deo, anything we haven't mentioned? Anything about episode 2 that kind of stuck out? Or
trying to think. I did like. So, like what Dalan was saying is that you can't really, match the TV show 1-to-1 with the games because like gameplay is totally different from watching something, right? I thought it was hilarious when they go into the hotel for the first time and like it's knee deep in water, right? But then Ellie says like, "Oh, I can't swim." And then because Nora, right? He's like, "Are you serious?" And Pedro Pascal just hops in there and it's only like knee high. And I thought that was hilarious because like obviously it'd be super boring if we just watched him like get freaking wooden platforms and swim it over to her and like carry ladders over to her to go do that kind of thing, right? So I'm glad it's a little nod and a dig to the games, but it's also presenting it in a way it's just like, oh yeah, we remember our history, we're gonna do it this way, but the TV series is gonna be a little different from what you're used to, but we're reimagining it in a way, in a different context, so then you're able to watch it and be more bearable with the situation.
Yeah, that is one thing I actually remember being in the game, being that you go to a hotel and there's that low source of water, but she didn't ask about the water, you just got in it. But you didn't have to push no wood around there. The last time I remember pushing wood around was when you were in the sewers.
He's making an example, Dalan. He's making an example that in the game you push stuff around. But yeah, you make it make sense for the adaptation, right? Luis, what do you think, man? Anything we haven't mentioned about episode 2 that you kind of want to get out?
Nothing that I would kind of want to touch on. I do find it interesting, I guess. Well, I guess it doesn't. It's not super crazy to think about because Joel even didn't find out in the game until he went to Bill's town that Frank wasn't alive anymore. But Tess did mention take Ellie to Bill and Frank's. So
did she? I missed that.
You know what? I think
entirely. That was
and I don't know if you guys have been watching like Next Up the preview. I watch it, man.
I haven't. No,
I watch. Oh, do you want me to tell you what's in the preview?
No, that's one where I'm gonna say don't do it.
All right. So I'm not gonna spoil it, but I'm saying like I'll watch them because I'll forget, man. By the time the next episode comes out, I'll forget. I'm not trying to spoil it, but the deviations might be coming. Based on like the preview, the deviations might be coming, and I'm a little hyped. I'm a a little scared. I'm
fine with that.
Okay. I feel like they're coming. Yeah.
Even with Carlos's hyped scaredness, I still recall you saying that you were concerned for the well-being of this TV show. Do you still have those issues?
No, man. I mean, look. They still got what? Is it supposed to be 9 episodes? They still got right. I think they still got 6 episodes or 7 episodes, whatever it is. But we're hyped. Deo was the one that we had to put him on blast. I think 2 episodes ago. He's the one that had to. He's the one that had to walk back a couple statements.
I'm a skeptic,
Hey, but that's fair.
Who I asked,
that's
Carlos.
fair, and that's very fair. That's very fair. We should have been a skeptic, but so far it's a beautiful thing. Luis, did you say kind of your last point there, or was there something else?
Well, it was just going to be that I'm excited to see what they do in Bill's town, since it, I didn't watch the preview, but it sounds like that's what's coming up.
Yeah.
Next, so
Dalan,
I'm excited for that.
Dalan, last word, man. Here you go. What do you think? Or are you good?
Hey, I'm excited to see their variations on the types of clickers that there are. So I'm down to watch them fight bosses in the show.
And let me guess, Dalan, when you watch them come on screen, you're going to say, let them fight. Is that what you're gonna say, Dan? Is that your statement?
Hey man, there's no kaijus here, but basically, I just want to see, because again, it's that difference between playing the game and cinematic. Because when you're playing the game, you only have so much range of movement. Like you could only shoot your gun, or you swing whatever weapon you have in your hand at the time, and they do the same motions every single time. Cinematics, you're throwing busts down and breaking glass and like hitting people with whatever. Like you hit somebody with a table, you can't do that in the game.
Well, Dalan, I hope that next episode completely exceeds all your expectations. I hope we can keep going. It might be one of those Sundays where one of us couldn't watch it, but I hope we can all keep watching it. Hopefully it's appointment TV around my house. I was doing something. I think I was watching a game or something. I was like, wait, I got to stop because my child has a bedtime.
Take the game off the screen.
I was like,
Last of Us.
I was like, my child has a bedtime, so I got to make sure to watch this episode before she has to get to bed. But I hope we can keep doing this. It's been a mini Seent It. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. You already listened to it if you heard Salient Points yesterday, but here's a clip out of it as well. So I'm Carlos Macias, master of, what was it, Dalan?
Tech Decks.
Dalan Kirkwood from up in the mountains. Hey, be careful with those things, because Dale has to go out there and replace them. Those little center divider thingies.
Hey, it's not about me. It's about the wind. That's his worst enemy.
It's not about wind. It's about family, all right? Let me put it to you that way. Dale, thank you for joining us, sir. I hope your 49ers, it's going to be a nice one. 49ers versus
I hope so.
Eagles.
Thank you. I hope so.
It's been a while since they've won a Super Bowl.
If they lose, you still got to show up on here, man. And you still got to show up on here. You can show up crying if you must. You can show up crying. I don't know if you guys see First Take or whatever, but First Take had the time of his life ripping into
Shannon?
Michael Irvin. No, Michael Irvin or whatever. Yeah. And it was like, so we'll see. But thank you for joining us, Deo.
Thank you, guys.
And of course, Luis Mendez on the Wheels of Steel. Thank you, sir. See you around. Maybe
his Need for Speedness.
Yeah, we'll see him from the void. I was thinking he might have switched to Zombieland or something, or The Last of Us, but that's all right. People are gonna be like, "What the hell? They're talking about Last of Us, but there's a car on the screen."
Hey, but I'm just saying, don't die under the mic, Luis. That's all I'm saying.
I'm good.
All right, latest. Hey, keep it moving. Like he said, keep it moving. Carry on.
Keep it on a swivel.
The latest.